All right. Welcome everybody. Welcome to this 11 or 10 o'clock session of Pinpoint. We're going to talk about how you can stop copying and pasting between different platforms and kind of streamline and become more efficient in your processes overall, including directly within Excel, Google Sheets, QGIS, no coding required. Turn the time over to Spencer Powell. Take it away, Spencer.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. And yeah, just again, welcome everybody. Really excited to be here. Excited to talk with all of you about some kind of no code solutions. um, so we often are asked by our users or potential users about ways that they can access Smarty's value, which typically is through our lightning fast, very robust APIs. But how can they make use of Smarty's tools if maybe they don't have engineering resources, or they're not in the situation where they can build out some middleware to access them via APIs, etc. So maybe, for example, you don't have an engineering team, or you're within an organization that doesn't have those resources available to you so that you can build out API access. Or maybe you yourself are responsible for dealing with your address data and you're not very technical yourself. And so the whole idea of trying to connect via APIs is not something that really you can handle. Or it could even be that you just need to do some ad hoc validation, right? Maybe you have a list of addresses that you process weekly or monthly or something like that, or even a single address that you're interested in finding some data about, making sure that it's valid. Any of those and many other scenarios are kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So there are actually lots of ways that you can get the value of Smarty without having to just go straight to the APIs. So we're going to talk about our no code or low code ways, and I'll talk about that at the end, but no code or low code ways that you can validate your addresses. I'm going to start with two of our most popular ways within our web tools. So we have our single address verification tool, and then we also have our list processing or our bulk upload tool that you can use. So I'm going to show you briefly how our single address tool works, and some of the details and just the power of just the single address tool. Okay, so here I am within the tool. And what I want to highlight really quick is the single address tool right now is taking advantage of Smarty's autocomplete functionality. So notice as I start to type the address, it is making suggestions based on a variety of different points of addresses that it thinks might be the address that I am trying to type. So not only does it save me time in typing, but now I've got this nice kind of cleaner address there. So I'm going to go ahead and select this right now. And then right away, we get this result up here in the left. It's talking about, yep, found one valid address. This is indeed a valid address. It is also added, the last four digits of the zip code here. So it's already done some of that effort there to standardize this address. Notice up at the top also, we have this analysis section. So this is telling us indeed, this address is valid. It is present in USPS data. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But just kind of remember that USPS data. So this is an address that's validated within the United States Postal Service data. As I continue looking through what I get here in the tool, this is then the raw output. So if I was using the API, this is similar to what the response would look like. And the value of this is we do sometimes have engineers that are using this. You can copy and paste this raw output. You can use it other places. It is readable where you could actually go through. We've got some geocoding information down here, which we'll talk about more later as well. And then we've gone ahead and we've actually just plotted this location on a map. And yeah, so lots of really good information here within the tool. Now, there's also some reasons why maybe your data or you're interested in how Smarty handles kind of these different components. So whereas the first part of this tool was just a single address, single input of text, now we're going to actually look at the single address tool via components. So I'm going to type in the address, the city, state, zip, etc.
And
And then
this
here I'm
again, use
actually,
the autocomplete as well.
yeah, here I'm actually not going to use the autocomplete.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and type in my data here. And then a few things I want to point out. So because I did not use autocomplete, and I actually entered in some invalid data. So it has over here, it still said, yeah, this is indeed a valid address because Smarty went ahead and corrected the incorrect information. And it's telling us here in the analysis what it corrected. So it corrected the zip code. I put in an incorrect zip code. It corrected it and then added the additional four digits. And then I didn't add the street suffix. I didn't include road, which is, part of the standardized address format that we have as part of this data. So all of this within the single address tool, because I did not use the autocomplete, it went ahead and corrected those things for me. And then again, I can see that I've got data down here. I can copy and paste, different parts of data. So if I was interested in pieces of this, I could take it and copy and paste it out of the tool itself. We're going to talk more about rooftop precision and geocoding information, but it's displaying all of that just for this single address. So we have up to 55 data points for addresses. And now what I'm kind of spotlighting here is this is our analyzed output. So similar to the raw output, but in more human readable format. We also have little tooltips next to this output. So if you're curious about carrier route or RDI or what that might be, you can actually mouse over any of those tooltips and learn more about all of this address data for this one address. So really pretty exciting. I mean, for those of us that are into addresses, it's really pretty cool. Okay, now what I'm going to spotlight here is we are a global company, so we have international addresses as well. So you can run international addresses through our single address tool. I'm going to take an example, just a sample address in Japan. But notice the data is different, but we still have a lot of metadata about this one address. And so you, again, are able to go through and kind of review whatever data is most interesting to you with that single address. So all of that was just our single address tool for both US and international. And you can take advantage of the autocomplete functionality, or like I demonstrated there, you could not use it for some reason. Okay, so we're going to move on now to another one of our most popular tools. So of course, I think many of us, maybe most of us, while you might have one-off addresses that you're needing to handle, very frequently you're looking at lists of addresses, right? You might have a mailing list of addresses that you need to kind of prep and validate, make sure that before you send all those mailers out, that they're actually going to be deliverable, that you have secondary information, whatever your use case is. Frequently you're needing to process a list of addresses. So I'm now going to show you our list processing or our bulk upload tool. So this tool, within our Smarty account dashboard, similar here, you'll go ahead and just access the tool. I'm going to click on list processing. Now you may be in a situation where you're just trying out Smarty, and you just want to see kind of what the output looks like. Maybe you don't have a list quite yet or whatever. You can actually download a sample list, US, international, or just zip codes, so that you can then run a list through the tool and just see what the output looks like, all right there within the tool. For now, I'm going to actually import a list of addresses. Now these are United States addresses, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now right here, we'll talk a little bit more about enhanced matching. Normally, we recommend that you use enhanced matching. You're going to take advantage of additional data, non-USPS data, additional matching characteristics. But for this demo, I'm going to leave enhanced matching off. And I'm just going to use kind of our standard address validation license here as well. So let's go ahead and process this. Now, if you've used Smarty's list processing tool before, this might look a little bit different to you. This is a somewhat recent-ish release. where you can, of course, download the results. We'll talk more about that, but we now have some great high-level summary overview information that right here within the tool, you can kind of get a feel for, the addresses that you uploaded, kind of how'd it go, right? Like what were the matching, what were the matches like, etc. So here at the top, we're going to just tell you high level, 500 rows were processed. So we went through the whole list. This is a good indicator if you were expecting 10,000 and you didn't see, 10,000 processed. We're going to call out that of those 500, 455 were full matches, right? So we standardized and then verified, validated that these addresses are indeed real addresses. We cleaned those up for you. Now we do have 17 addresses here that are listed as matched with exceptions. So matched with exceptions typically means that, yeah, the main components of the address, we were able to find and clean those up, but either you, the user, provided some secondary information that we're not recognizing. So say you put in apartment, 4 3/4, and that's not address that we're seeing as valid secondary address. Or the alternative is we know that this is like a multi-unit address and there is no secondary information. For your use case, that might be okay. But we want to kind of call attention to these because if you are sending out mailers, for example, you might want to look at those 17 addresses and say, oh, okay, yeah, let's dig in a little deeper and let's make sure that our secondary information is accurate. Let's make sure that we're not getting those mailers back because we put in an incorrect apartment or suite or something like that. So we're kind of calling all of that out right here. And then, of course, here at the bottom, we've got then 28 that we couldn't find them. There were no matches. It could be that there was gibberish or a whole bunch of things were missing, whatever it might be. Now, here at the bottom is where we're going to call out our geocode precision. So by design, I did not run this using our geocoding license. And so within our address verification product, we do have geocoding information, but it is typically zip 9 and below. And so that's what this is telling me is of my 500 addresses that I ran, we do indeed have geocoding information for 472 of those. Those are at a zip 9 precision level. On down to, 765. And then there were some that we, again, because they're not matches and we don't have geocoding information, there were no matches there. So we don't have geocoding information there.
Spencer, with that, what does a zip 9 mean? What is that?
Yeah, so a good way to think of this is that this is kind of how precise within the parcel, the street, the city, the state, like how precise is that Latin long? Is it rooftop, which is what we'll see in a minute? Is it parcel? Is it street? Zip 9 is then it's within the city, I believe.
Okay, very cool.
Good question. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and actually then run this same list. So yeah, download results. We'll show you that at the end, what that looks like. You can actually, this is also newer within the product where you can look at the results right within the product. So we're going to show you similar to what we saw for the single address tool. I can dig in now. I haven't even left the product. I can dig in and see, again, that geocode information. I can expand the details. Similar to the single address tool, I have access to all of the metadata for each of these addresses if I want to just investigate right here within the tool. So some really great, useful features. I'm going to go ahead and upload the same list. And we're going to make some changes. So again, these are US addresses. Now I am going to go ahead and run enhanced matching, which again is what we recommend. You can still tell if it's a USPS match or if it's what we call kind of a non-postal. It's one of our 20+ million addresses that are not in the USPS database. And then I'm also going to now use my geocoding license. So now we're going to take a look and see what kind of geocoding information we have for the same exact list of addresses. So The first thing I want to point out is now we've got a slightly higher match rate because we've expanded to say, hey, maybe I'm using a different carrier than USPS. And so I'm okay if it's a standardized validated address, but it's not in the USPS data. That's okay. So now we're including that and saying, yep, that is indeed a match. We've cleaned it up. We've got some data on it. So that's that first bit of information there. For matched with exceptions, again, it's the same thing. Might want to take a look at those secondaries. And then, of course, my no matches has gone down because we have those non-postals. The biggest thing is because I used my geocoding license, I now am seeing with that same group of addresses, I have much more precise information. So now 439 of those 500 addresses, I have rooftop precise location data. And so we have customers that will use this for things like, well, hey, maybe this address is on a very large parcel of land, here in the US, and we have a delivery driver that needs to know where the actual structure is, right? It might be all the way back at the back of a parcel in the middle of Wyoming or whatever it might be. And so knowing that we have a rooftop precision geocode is going to help know where to deliver that package. Or it's used often in the insurance space, right? If you're looking at setting up claims or things like that, knowing where on the property or where on the parcel that property is can be helpful when you're looking at risk analysis, et cetera. So there's a lot that you can learn just from looking at kind of this rooftop precision data. So I've now got more precise geocoding information because of that license that I used. Same kind of thing. I can drill into the results. I can download the results, whatever it is that I need to do. I do want to point out really quick. So here at Smarty, especially here on the product team, we are always just so anxious to talk to customers and get feedback about how you're using tools, ways that we can improve the tools. And so you'll see little things like this where we're saying, hey, if you've got feedback ideas or you're frustrated about something or you love something, please reach out. Let us know how that experience is going. And then, of course, we'd love to have some conversation with you. So as I mentioned, this is some newer functionality. So, please feel free to take a look and reach out. We'd love to talk to you. The last thing I'm going to show really quick on our bulk tool is similar to the single address tool. Again, we're a global company, so we can run international addresses. So I uploaded a list of international addresses. I do want to go ahead and take a look at the geocoding information. So I'm going to go ahead and process that list. And like we saw in the single address tool, similar, idea behind the data, but they are different data points. And now we're going to go ahead and actually download the results. So now what you're seeing here is just a lot of metadata all within this single CSV, so that you can take that, you could pull it into another system, you could process it, do whatever you need to do with those output results. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and talk very briefly about just a couple more tools. Within our tools section, you'll notice that, so we talked about single address, we talked about list processing. These other tools, US address extraction and US address enrichment, I'm not going to dig in deep on those today. Happy to answer questions at the end, or we've got great documentation. But essentially, the US address extraction tool is great if you need to, say you've got some PDFs or Word documents or plain text files, and you've got large blocks of text and you want to extract the addresses out. So that is the main point and purpose of this tool. It allows you to paste in large blocks of text. It will go through and scan looking for patterns and matches and pull out address information, so that then you can, you don't have to manually try to scan documents, pull out address information, validate it, standardize it, etc. So that's our US address extraction tool. The US address enrichment tool is another great way. So again, the point of this session is around those that don't have access to our APIs. Well, one of the APIs that we have is our address enrichment API. And so that tool the US address enrichment tool allows you to actually enter in an address, and without having to code anything via APIs, you can get your enrichment data back. So if you have our property or financial product, or you have our secondary enrichment product, the address enrichment tool will allow you to enter an address and then get all of that data. So the data that we've been looking at are the data points related to our single address, or sorry, to our address verification product. We have additional data points, 300 plus data points that you can get for addresses that you can access through that enrichment tool. So if you have questions, feel free to throw those in the chat. We can kind of talk about those towards the end, or offline as well. Okay, continuing our journey a little bit. So we do talk to users that, for a variety of reasons, maybe they don't want to export their data to a format like a CSV or something and then upload it into the bulk tool. But they just want to process within, Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets. Well, that's great. We've got some great add-ons and plugins for both of those that are free to download and install, that allow you to use Smarty from within those tools. So I'm gonna show you how that works really quick. So the first thing that we're gonna see here, sorry, let me go ahead. So the first thing that we'll see here is, not sure why that's not going full screen, so we'll just leave it there. Just like we were talking about a little bit earlier, like when you download and install this plugin, you're going to need to actually authenticate. So let me go back to that really quick. So your auth ID and your auth token, these are essentially the credentials that allow you to access Smarty. And so what you want to do is go out to your Smarty account, get your auth ID and your token, and paste them into, in this case, we're going to show Excel. And so you'll go ahead and authenticate that. Very quick and easy process. You can just kind of copy and paste those. Once you have your credentials in here I've got a kind of a subset of address data. And then over on the left, let me talk about these for just a quick second. You can validate only, which is essentially, hey, I'm going to run my address data through Smarty. I want to get data back that says, yep, it is indeed a valid address, and I want Smarty to go ahead and just clean it up, add the additional zip codes or, road, things like that. Validate plus geocodes is going to return all of that. So the valid information, the cleanup address, and then it's also going to attach the geocode and the precision, similar to what we've seen in the other tools. You'll get that data back, or you can do validate plus all of the metadata. So very similar to what we saw in the bulk upload tool. So those are kind of the options that you have within the tool here. And again, I'm going to go ahead and select rooftop because I do want to use my geocoding license. I want the more precise information. I'm going to keep matched on enhanced mode, which is the recommended. And then I actually want to put these into a new sheet, especially if I had several columns of data. I might want to throw that into a new sheet. And then we'll go ahead and do validate and get all of the data. So now within Excel, I've got all of that address data. It's on a new tab. I can then, of course, via Excel reference it, do whatever I need to do. I can apply some calculations, or based on, zip code precision, etc. I can take advantage of any of the metadata here within Excel. So I would mention again, Google, I'm showing Excel here. Google Sheets is about 99% the same. There are a few things that are just slightly different in layout, but all of the functionality is the same. Okay, we're going to talk now about QGIS. So if you're not familiar with QGIS, and there's other tools out there like this, but this is basically, so this one is a free and open source spatial visualization tool that you can download. There's lots of different ways that you can use this, but essentially, a fundamental foundational layer of this is location, right? Is address kind of information or location information. And so Smarty has a great plugin within that tool So we'll show you what that looks like here. So the first thing that I'm going to do, so this is just a kind of a base empty project. And I'm going to download just a base map. So this is Google satellite, just so that as we're plotting data, we obviously can have kind of a visualization layer. Now, I'm not going to walk through, installing and kind of managing the plugins today. Again, a very easy process. We've got great documentation, but this is essentially how you would install Smarty if you've not installed it yet, or how you'd update it if you need to. And then I can access Smarty here through the plugin menu or through the toolbar here at the top. And then you'll recognize, very similar things. We can do a single address. We can break it out into components if that's how we'd like. We can utilize autocomplete or not. I'm going to go ahead and use autocomplete and start typing my address. And so similar to what we've seen before, I'll go ahead and just select that. Now this is going to go ahead and plot it. So I want to put it on a new layer so it's clear to me that, this is some new data that I've got. So I'm going to label that as a Smarty layer. And I'm going to identify this. This is our headquarters here at Smarty. And then these other, I'm going to leave as defaults, but you can change the visual representation and the size and the color, but there's a lot that you can do there with just how it's plotted on the map. And then I'll go ahead and I'll run that. And so now what you're seeing here is it's then plotted with rooftop precision, our headquarters. So our location there. Now we have the same kind of bulk or batch functionality within QGIS. And so like we saw in the Excel plugin, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go out to my Smarty account dashboard. I'm going to get my auth ID and my token. And then I'll paste those in, and then you just hit add token. And you can see the little green bar here at the back. Essentially, me adding tokens there is really just, authenticating and making sure your credentials are correct. So if for some reason you ran into an issue with that, you'd want to make sure that you've copied and pasted the correct credentials. So once we have that, I'm going to go ahead and give it another CSV. So I want to process a list of addresses. And then the way that QGIS is built is similar to other tools like this. I'm now going to map some of these data fields. So for example, what I'm doing here is QGIS is looking for zip code. I'm going to identify the column in my data as zip. Your data obviously might be named differently, but really the mechanism behind this is allowing you to align your columns with kind of what QGIS is expecting. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then I do, like the bulk tool, I want to actually export this data as well. Even though I'm going to map it in QGIS, I also want to export it and be able to visually kind of look at it. And then this last step here is similarly to what I did with my single address. I want all of these data points to end up on a new layer so that whatever I'm doing here in QGIS, I can kind of manipulate it, etc. So I'm going to just call this, Smarty batch. And then I'll go back and I'll process this. So for me, every time I do it, this is really cool. It's just so fun seeing like, hey, it took all those addresses and then it went ahead and plotted them all out on the map itself. Let me go back to that really quick. So it went ahead and plotted all those addresses on the map. And so again, whatever you're using QGIS for, you now have, validated addresses that have also been standardized along with geocode precision to make sure that you're looking at the right place, the location in the right place. So really, really cool. All right. You're going to see Smarty in more and more places. So right now, what we're going to talk about are some of our partner integrations. So very similar to the whole point of this session is we have more and more users that, for whatever reason are looking to have kind of no code solutions. And so we're going to talk a little bit about Guidewire. And so this is, a use case where you're in the Guidewire platform, you go out, you want to download one of Smarty's accelerators and go ahead and get it installed so that you can utilize Smarty within that platform. If you're not familiar with Guidewire, it is one of the biggest platforms in the P&C insurance space. And so essentially, think of people that are underwriting and setting up claims and dealing with insurance, obviously want to make sure that they've got accurate address information and geocode information. So Smarty actually has 13 of what they call accelerators, which are basically installation packages of our product. So if you want to get our geocoding product with that rooftop precision location data, you can go into Guidewire and download and install that accelerator. Or if you're looking for our address verification, the core product, you can download that as well. Definitely something to check out if any of you here on the call are in the insurance space, especially if you're in Guidewire. If you weren't aware, you definitely want to take a look at the accelerators and see how Smarty can help you there. And like I said, we're always looking at ways to get into more platforms. So also, here at the end of this or after, if you feel like you're in a platform and you really would love to get Smarty there, we want to hear about it. We want to talk about it. So, okay. The last thing that I'm going to talk about here is, and this is where kind of the low code comes up. So this is the command line interface, or the CLI. What you're looking at here on the screen, it's built into the operating system. This is part of Mac OS or Linux or Windows. But really, this is a way that you can, again, process addresses without having to actually code anything. Now, why would you use this? A few really big reasons. So all the tools that I've talked about up to this point, like the bulk tool, the plugins in Google and Excel, we recommend that you not run a list larger than, say, 500,000. Just because of some of the overhead of running in the browser and some, potential file limitations, etc. We recommend, if you're running the bulk tool, for example, that you not have a list larger than 500,000. Well, many users are looking at millions of addresses. In fact, one of the sessions going on right now, if this is interesting, if the CLI and millions of addresses is interesting, you'll definitely want to check out Adam's talk that's going on right now about processing 400 million addresses by 5 p.m., right? So the command line interface, again, is not technically coding, but it is definitely the most technical tool that we're going to talk about. And you'll want to look at using the CLI if you need to run lists larger than 500,000. You don't want to break them up into smaller lists. It is also faster. Our tools you've seen are still very fast, but the CLI, because it doesn't have the overhead of the browser or Excel or things like that, it's able to run even faster. So as you're processing all of those addresses, it will do it lightning quick. So those are kind of the really big use cases. I hope that those of you in those situations aren't intimidated by the command line. I'm going to show you really how to use it here in a second, but really it's set up such that you really could just kind of copy and paste this one line of text in there. If you're, say, running a list multiple times, it's very easy to use. So let's take a look at it really quick. We'll see if I can, yeah, I'm not sure why it's not. So let me pause it here. So a couple of things. So here we are, I'm on Mac OS, so I'm within the terminal. And so this one line that you're looking at really this is the command that you're giving the computer. And so that's the bit where, like I said, you could kind of copy that. If you've got a list that you run, you could paste this in there every week, every day, every month, whatever. Just change the file name, or it could be the same name. But the first bit of information here is there is a little bit of a download and install. So we've got documentation that tells you how to download the Smarty list, is what we call it, but that's our CLI application. There's nothing really to install. You just download it and you can kind of put it wherever you want. But the first part of this is just identifying, hey, I want to go ahead and run the Smarty list. The next part has to do with our auth ID and our auth tokens. And so similarly, similar to what we've seen in the other tools, we're having to put in our credentials. And then the last bit is, okay, what file do you want me to run? Okay, so really that's it. It's like, hey, I want to run Smarty list. Here are my credentials, and then here's the file. Now I'm going to talk briefly about credentials, just because here I am on this demo and I'm showing plain text my credentials. So similar to like an email address and a password, right? You wouldn't ever produce a document that has your password in plain text and then you publish that and then somebody has your credentials. You want to think of your auth ID and the token here the same way. That is essentially like a username and password. So these are demo credentials that I've created that won't work outside of this. And so that's why I'm putting them here. But if you were to say produce a document with internal organization document that you published out or something, you'd want to just make sure that you're not putting those in plain text, so that if that somehow got out there, then somebody has your username and password essentially. So yeah, just be aware. That's why I'm showing these here, but you'd want to make sure that you actually are protecting those. Okay, so back to the CLI. I've got my single line of text, where I'm cruising through and saying, this is what I want to do. It's going to run a brief kind of pre-process and say, hey, I think this is what you're trying to do. You want Smarty list to run. You want us to look at this list. We think it's going to take about 500 lookups. And it's just saying, hey, is this what you want to do? You're just going to put in, yes or no. But yep, I'm going to say, yes, that is indeed what I want to do. And then that's it. It ran it. So you could see even my examples were fast. This is a second, half a second probably, where it ran the whole list. And now I have my data. So just like I've seen on the other tools, I've got all of my data here in this CSV that I can import into my database. I could do whatever it is that I need to do from running. Now again, imagine this was 400 million addresses or whatever it might be. The CLI is extremely fast, even with very, very large batches of data. So again, please don't be intimidated by it. If this is you and you need some help, we have an excellent support team as well, great documentation. And so if the CLI will help you as part of your workflow, please, let us know. We'd love to help walk you through it. Okay. So the last thing here, and then we're gonna, I think, open it up to questions, is everything that I've shown you, you can access for free as part of a demo. So we don't restrict that functionality. We very much believe, we want users to upload real addresses and see how Smarty does. We want you to run a bulk list or do a single address or whatever it might be. So maybe you've been on our US address verification product, but you were interested by some of the rooftop precision geocoding information. You might want to reach out and get a free trial for geocoding or international. So just to plug that all of these, you can set up free trials on the website. Most of the free trials are 42-day 1,000 lookup trials where you can actually try out any of these tools that we've talked about, as well as APIs. So if you do have engineers or you do have people that want to try the APIs, you can also try the APIs full featured as part of our demos. Thank you all very much. I assume, Ryan, you've kind of been looking at the chat. I hope I haven't missed questions, but now's the time to ask questions, and I will answer those that I can and follow up on those that I can't.
Yeah, one thing we have is with the free trial, does that require like credit card? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. We do not require a credit card. Again, we don't want you to have even that barrier, right? We really believe in our service. So you can go out to the website. We do, email, address, and password. We want you to create an account. But yeah, then you can just download a free trial, no credit card needed.
Very cool. When it comes to the bulk tool with spreadsheets, is it possible to keep like the secondaries all in the same section as the primary address versus having them parse out.
Oh, so you're saying as far like the as far as the columns go and saying, hey, we want
Right.
to keep secondaries as part of that? Uh,
Yeah.
that's a great question. Today, it is not possible, though that is potentially something that we could look at. I've not had that request before. Um, but yeah, so just to make sure I understand, it sounds like you'd want to be able to put in the address, have the secondaries included in that, and instead of pulling that out as a separate column, you'd like the secondaries to still be included in the now validated address. Is that accurate?
Other way around a little bit. Like
Oh, okay.
if you're given it with all the secondaries included in the
Yeah.
standard, will it parse it out?
Okay. Yeah. No, that's a good question. Something that we can look at.
Okay. Okay. Those are kind of our two main questions.
No, just again, thank you. I will on this slide here, there's a QR code you can scan, and you can actually set up a time on my calendar if you've got features you'd like to talk about or questions or things like that. Very interested in talking to you about these tools or other things. So feel free to scan that and reach out. But yeah, other than that, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.